the 17th of October 2022. I'm Dana Durnford. I'm also known as the Nuclear Proctologist.org. You can call in at 709-589-4406. You can, but you won't. I hope everybody's having a great day. Today on this marvelous Monday, got a big poll tonight for all four of us. Got 4 viewers. Wow. Killing it. Will small modular nuclear reactors that do not exist lower energy bills anywhere in the next 20 years? Well, like me, a lot of people are suggesting that's impossible. They got one design on paper. And they're like, there's an energy crisis. We got to get small modular reactors. But they don't exist. It's like saying we're going to get fusion energy because there's an energy crisis and that'll solve all the problems. It's disgusting. That's nuclear. That's what it does. It's a professional disgusting. That's... Don't get me started. We got a child telling everybody what to do worldwide, unfortunately, who doesn't know anything about nuclear. Knows nothing. Somebody tweets her something and that's her opinion for today. Tomorrow somebody else will tweet her and that'll be her opinion for somebody else. The situation at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the Russians almost staged a new Fukushima 3 times. Almost staged a new Fukushima. They're claiming Fukushima is not as bad as Chernobyl. And a pedophile is not as bad as a journalist, which happens to be true. The situation. So they lost power again. Gee, that's... How many times have I heard that in the last month? The power plants need external power to run. They need 2 dedicated, not transmission lines, but dedicated coal, gas, and oil plants. The great big coal, gas, and oil plants that power cities. They need 2 of them to run a nuclear power site. Each reactor needs 4,500 tons of water per minute for starters. It's 1 million gallons a minute. It's 4,500 pickup trucks a minute. They can't run on their own power. There's a high risk of a nuclear catastrophe at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine, the captured Ukrainian nuclear plant. Russia's shelling cut the external power, so they're running on generators. Now they're in shutdown mode, but they got to have power. The reactors are still full of fuel. The control rods are in there, but they gotta have water or it melts down. The fuel pools gotta have circulatory water and power or they melt down quite quickly. The Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear energy plant in southern nuclear disease factory, operating on diesel generators, emergency, after their shelling took out their power supply. Could be Ukraine doing it itself, see? The backup generators kicked in after the only substation, so they don't have a backup supply anymore. They just have a single line. Because that's the problem with nuclear power plants. A hurricane, typhoon, cyclone, tornadoes, adverse weather conditions can take out the power supply. and could cause damage to the grid where you can't even use the generators. If one of those shells hit the transmission facility there, the generators and backup power don't matter anymore. Once it melts down, you can't fix anything. And another huge nail into the species. Energy said the backup generators kicked in. The only substation supplying the plant was damaged before dawn, 4 a.m. their time apparently. Although the plant's 6 reactors are shut down for weeks, they need a constant supply of electricity. They didn't shut the reactors down until they lost power a couple of times. In a war zone, the nuclear industry sat in silence the whole time. They need a constant supply of electricity to keep the nuclear fuel inside cool and prevent a meltdown. And prevent a meltdown, folks. Atom said Russia was targeting all the substations supplying Ukraine nuclear power stations with electricity. If they wanted to do that, they could. You wouldn't have to target the substations. You would just disconnect it anywhere along the route. Right? If you take out the other generating stations, which is supplying power, like you say, all I got to do is cut the power coming in. And you're in a serious world of shit. In recent days, the Ruskies shelling the entire territory of Ukraine, deliberately targeting the substations connected to the high voltage. They call it communication lines. These are not communication lines, these are power lines. Count on the industry to lie to you every step of the way, right? That's what it does. So we got 15 votes. Will small modular nuclear reactors that do not even exist, not even on paper, lower energy bills anywhere in the next 20 years? Because this is what they're claiming. We need small modular reactors so we can lower the bills that were from inflation by embargoes. They put an embargo against Russia, and now their electricity is 4 times normal. So whoever done that, the right thing to do is absolutely fire them, obviously. And you hurt the entire country. You made all the commodities prices, which didn't need to climb the way they did, climb through the ceiling on purpose. This is on purpose. Nation's first nuclear power clean hydrogen production announced. This is the World Economic Forum at work, Klaus Schwab. That's his group, right? He funds it, he's the chairing it, he created it. The world would be a lot better without him on this planet, I can assure you. Nation's first nuclear power clean hydrogen production announced. Nuclear power is the dirtiest fuel on the planet. It's the dirtiest production way to produce energy on the entire planet. It's the most resource-intensive energy in the entire planet in history. You can't call hydrogen that you might make from that clean. You disgusting media, you despicable media on this planet. The 9 Mile Point Generating Station is the oldest operating disease factory in the United States. These are disease factories. These reactors are already brittle from decades of neutron bombardments. To suggest that this is going to be zero emissions and carbon free, their parents should be getting life in jail for not drowning these fuckers in buckets of vomit. These are despicable, degenerate scum. My apologies for descriptive. Germany's coalition still at odds over nuclear power as the Green Party accepts limited extension. They had 32 reactors in 2011. They got 3 today because they closed them down on schedule. And the other 3 were supposed to close on the 31st of December. That'll be the end of nuclear for Germany, right? And the entire media on the planet, every day since 2011, has constantly attacked Germany for saying nuclear is despicable. All of the media hasn't stopped for 11 years, folks. X-Energy marks the start of a construction of a U.S. fuel plant. They're going to try to make the fuel that Russia's making currently. They can't. The new scale and Bill Gates' fabled small modular reactors are dependent on Russia's special mixed oxide weapons grade fuel being downblended. So this is mixed oxide fuel, but still very high percentages. It's even worse than mixed oxide fuel. So they broke the ground on the fuel fabrication facility in Oak Ridge National Laboratories, which is built on one of the biggest aquifers in that county, in that state. Just like all these national labs are built right on top of the best aquifers, and these aquifers are supplying farms and cities and communities. They're completely contaminated since the 50s. Nuclear is by definition evil. It's by definition unsustainable. It's by definition genocidal and omnicidal. It destroys all species just through the emissions. Why are you sitting in silence? The universities were captured, Dana. The media has been captured, Dana. Key positions in the government been captured, Dana. Non-regulatory agencies were captured before they were created, Dana. Oh, okay, slow down, go easy. Come on, I was just asking. Jeez, talk about beating a guy up on a Monday. Develop of the Xenon 100 high-temperature gas-cooled small modular reactors. First off, they're not developers of anything. They don't even have it on paper and approved. They don't have any ground. They got those reactors they're going to build a fuel for don't exist. They've been saying this for 50 years. And now all of a sudden, almost all the media is talking small modular reactors are going to save us from the Ruskies. They don't exist. They actually don't exist. So, because you're putting all your eggs in this basket, renewables, which is stupid, simple, unbelievable, quick deployment, the only thing holding it back, if anything at all, is storage. And so instead of having at least 5 universities working on the storage solution, none does. And every one of them is working on small modular reactors that don't exist and won't. Because the renewable renaissance is here. I mean, last year, 2021, was 333 nuclear power plants where the renewables came online in 12 months. How is nuclear going to compete with that again? And when these memorandum of understandings mean you're not going to look at anything else. You're going to just look at the small modular reactors that don't exist. Guaranteeing there's no as everything breaks down, there's nothing to replace it. Look at France. No backup plan whatsoever. It can't be used by reactors that don't exist. You're not the producer of a reactor when it doesn't even exist, and it's not even approved to the regulatory agencies, the non-regulatory agencies. It's going to produce 8 tons of fuel per year in your dreams. It's in your dreams. You can produce all the fuel you got, but they're no good if you don't got reactors, stupid. And shit for brains. In Virginia, politician Young King is going to propose funding for small modular nuclear reactors that don't exist. Oh, don't worry though. He's going to allocate $10 million, and $5 million of it's going to go towards small modular reactors. You can't even do the survey for $5 million. You don't have it on paper. You don't have an approved design. You don't have a supplier. So that raises the question then, I guess, is will small modular nuclear reactors that do not even exist lower energy bills anywhere in the next 20 years? No. At best, they're going to get one built. They got to get the kinks out of it. Then they got to redesign it, re-engineer it. Then they got to get a new facility and build a new one with the new design without the flaws from the original first. It's 30 years before anything comes to fruition. New Zealand MPs say rocket lab launches could betray the country's anti-nuclear stance. Most of their contracts are from the military in New Zealand for rocket launches. Over half of their contracts are the military. The misery machine. How do they look their children in the eye? How does that actually work, I wonder? And New Zealand now is calling conflict of interest. 7 ways nuclear techniques combat malnutrition. Well, the emaciation of all the species is caused by radioactive fallout. Let's see them fix that first before they can pretend that they can solve anything else. This is the International Atomic Energy Agency. I've never caught them being honest a single time in the last decade. Not once. Nuclear power is the answer to our energy woes. So you got all the media out there groveling and licking boots of the nuclear industry, hoping for some kickbacks. They'll murder everybody so they get their paycheck and keep their ridiculous propaganda jobs. It's absurd. Your power spot prices rise as the French strikes delayed nuclear maintenance. They got over half their fleet is shut down. 6 of them are because of droughts. And they're going to build more reactors despite droughts shutting down majority of their reactors each year. How does that actually work, I wonder? So, the money they're going to lose because of the strike would pay the wages for next decades of the people that's on strike. First off, the workers are the welders and the pipe fitters and the scaffolders and everybody else. They're temporary workers. They're going into the reactor core where everything is bombarded with neutrons and X-rays and gamma shines. And they're not aware of that at all. The industry is so evil, it needs its own encyclopedia of evil. NATO, which shouldn't exist because they were created as a counter to the Soviet Union, when that dissolves, NATO should have disappeared too, begins nuclear exercises amid the Russian war tensions. They do this each year, right? 14 of NATO's 30 member countries were due to take part in the exercise. It's 30 militaries currently. They're stupid, and then there's these people. There's different levels of stupid, and nuclear is at the very top of this. Diffused nuclear war protesters rally at dozens of U.S. congressional offices. Bless your hearts. At least you're doing something, I suppose. Say no to nukes. It warms my heart every time I see people at least trying. They don't understand that the politicians are not going to be swayed by anybody under the industry. They're a yes man, not on the fence. Russia would use tactical nuclear weapons if Crimea was threatened, Elon Musk. He bought Twitter, as far as I know, right? You know what that means? We're never going to get rid of him. He's got a huge platform. The media gets kickbacks every time they regurgitate his name. And he's got a lot of stupid followers that will just come on board because Elon Musk makes his claim. Like, Elon Musk claimed that he went to Fukushima when the accident happened. As everything was melting down and everybody was running away, he went deep in there by the nuclear plants and picked food from the local farms and started eating it down to prove it was safe. These are professional lawyers that are lethal to the victims. Right? This kind of deception is lethal to absurd amounts of people each time. You can't have a future with people like this on your planet. How nuclear fusion reactors like this one would change the world. Renewables can change the world. Fusion ain't going to change the world. You're talking about containing 150 million degree Fahrenheit temperatures. And then boiling water with it. But by the way, the amount of tritium you produce in it is catastrophic. You can't contain it and you can't store it. Well, you can, but you won't. It's not just going to be contaminated water, folks. Now, when you're talking 150 million degree temperatures, that's a detonation, right? Something goes wrong. They say it can shut down in a few seconds. It only needs a millionth of a second to detonate at those temperatures. So if it goes wrong, it can detonate before it can shut down. It's just 50 years. They got 5,000 scientists at this single place. There's many other places. But the big one in France is 5,000 nuclear physicists trying to solve the riddle that they know they can't solve. If you took those 5,000 and gave them a couple of months off and got them to solve storage for renewables, problem solved, right? Not maybe, but problem solved. UK material facility upgrade to support fusion research. In the United Kingdom, well, what it is, it's a money hole. It's a big, stupid money pit. That's what fusion is. And they need money all the time because it takes a lot of money to fund 5,000 scientists and their latest quirks. And they need only the best of the best of the best of the precious metals. They use enough electricity to power a nuclear New York City each time. they're traitors to humanity, wasting all this time and energy and effort when they can solve the problem of renewables within a month or two. Just this one lot of retards. I absolutely positively despise their cowardness. Is artificial intelligence going down the path of nuclear weapons? Does anybody really think they're not going to use that on nuclear? You're guaranteed they are. You can pretend they're not, but I guarantee you they are. Would Bitcoin survive a nuclear war? I feel sorry for anybody who writes stuff like that. I really do. You got to be incredibly pathetic if to write stuff like that. I hate going to these sites like the Defense Post. You know, they're going to catalog you, right? Spain... what the hell would I want to mention about this? Radiological and nuclear threats. Chemicals, nuclear defense drills. It's fear-mongering. No one's going to attack anybody with a nuclear weapon anymore. You can't cash your check if he does that. South Korea kicks off military drills amid talk of North Korea nuclear test. The United Nations went in and flattened North Korea. The United Nations now, in the 50s. They used napalm, a mixture of gasoline and agents that would liquefy the gas into like a jelly. And they burnt down every community. So if it lands on you, you got this big glob. Think about a rope and catch a rope and get it on fire and have that drip on you. It's really nasty stuff. It's actually worse than that. And they burnt down every community in North Korea with millions dead, millions missing, millions in refugee camps, millions unaccounted for, millions and millions and millions wounded, millions and millions and millions traumatized for the rest of their life. And we're talking civilians. It's a collective punishment. And now for 70 years, you got land, sea, and air embargoes against a country that hasn't attacked anybody in 70 years and has no choice, unfortunately, but to build some kind of defense. And so South Korea is a piece of shit for doing this constantly. It's an absolute... How can you fix something you won't even try? You land, sea, and air embargoes for 70 years, and you have the arrogance to think that they're supposed to listen to you. You're so far from being a human, there is no hope for people like this. NG is a energy company. Stop government talks with NG, the energy company, over nuclear extension. This French-speaking socialist party called on the federal government to step up negotiations with NG on the extensions of 2 nuclear reactors and to obligate them to generate power at a fixed price because France got half its fleet down, right? Prices have skyrocketed. And these plants, they got to have 2 external power plants to run them. 2 large gas, oil, and coal plants to run these stupid disease factories. Biden rebuked by Pakistani officials for calling nuclear-armed country one of the most dangerous nations. Well, that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. Biden's a friggin' idiot and everybody knows it, but he's happened to be right on that one. The president or the Prime Minister of Pakistan said the country takes nuclear safety measures with the utmost seriousness. Is that why you got streets and streets and streets of deformed children down there? Like, you got 1 million children dying every year of dysentery, diarrhea, and pneumonia that could be cured for pennies each. But you got no money because you give it all to the degenerate nuclear industry. The despicable, revolting, hideous, murderous, psychopathic nuclear industry. This story cracks me up. The Baton nuclear power plant in the Philippines, they built it, but Chernobyl happened. And so they didn't finish it, right? So that's 36 years ago. 36 years later, they want to fire it up. Oh no, it's quite fine. There's other designs like it out there that is running just fine, Dana. Yeah, but this one is... you're going to put new technology in an old plant for starters. You don't have the workforce, you don't have the manpower, you don't have the employees, you don't have the infrastructure on top of that. And they done a $500 million study, and it disappeared. It just disappeared. So when the opposition wanted to study, oh, well, it disappeared. The study said that it was decrepit and old, and it was a disease factory. And so they just deep-sixed it. So this is a terrible story. Report says Missouri elementary school is contaminated with nuclear waste 22 times above acceptable levels. And the school board and the families are calling for the nuclear industry to go in and clean it up. You can't clean up a radioactive school. It can't be done. You got to dig up the entire site and take it to a nuclear dump and build a school somewhere else, far, far away from that place. Contain radioactive levels 22 times more than expected, which is a hell of a lot more than 22 times safety limit I just claimed. So apparently all they could find was lead-210, polonium, and radium, and other toxins. This is a disgusting lie. It's a despicable lie. As if the uranium and plutonium now had decayed to lead and polonium and radium. Like, this is absurdness in lies. From the elementary school, the radiological contamination exists at unacceptable levels at the Jana school property. And remedial measures are appropriate to reduce exposures to radioactive material for users of the school building. You can't reduce it and make it safe. You can reduce it, but it's not going to make it safe. And grounds, but are complicated by recontamination due to flooding of the contaminated Coldwater Creek. Contaminated Coldwater Creek. Flooding the creek had contaminated the school decades and decades later. Can you imagine how much damage that creek is doing to communities, folks? And estuaries and streams and rivers and lakes. Samples from the school kitchens, the library, the vacuum system, the classrooms, the fields, the playgrounds, all too contaminated. And we expect the school board to make the agencies responsible for this to come in and clean it up. Which, this is a president of the Parent Teacher Association, who obviously didn't even try to understand what nuclear contamination means. You can't clean it up. Nuclear industry, like, yeah, no, we'll get right on it. Keep the kids in school, nothing going to harm them. It's like a banana and a potato chip, walking in sunshine, climbing mountains, sleeping next to somebody. Hi everybody, hope everybody's doing good. Hope everybody's doing good. Army Corps of Engineers started testing in 2018 but didn't find anything. Like, the worst thing you could do is let the Army test. How are people this stupid, I wonder? U.S. nuclear test hangs over the Marshall Islands treaty talks. After the dozens of U.S. nuclear tests, the Castle Bravo was equal to almost 1,000 dozens tests. It was equal to over 1,000 Nagasaki bombs, plutonium bombs. The only uranium bomb was the Hiroshima, right? After that, all the degenerate bombs were plutonium. The dozens of U.S. nuclear tests, as if there's 1 million square miles contaminated down there, or square kilometers. What is it? Hang on, I'll get it. I think it's kilometers, actually. I rarely say miles, so it must be kilometers. Nothing says evil quite like the pro-nuclear community. Yeah, 1 million square kilometers. You can look up that study from 2019, July the 15th, 2019, extending contaminated radioactive fallout from the testing program contaminated a huge swath of land and ocean. Swath. 1 million square kilometers now is just a swath of land, folks. Grammar in this context is everything, right? India fires a submarine missile warning at China and Pakistan. No, they went out and tested their ballistic missile. Right? This is from the military. Putin preps a nuclear strike on Europe, but it won't involve weapons. No, it'll be radioactive fallout from a meltdown at a nuclear power plant, right? Shine gets Dutch approval for a project to improve patients' access to promising new nuclear medicine. They're talking about a fusion technology company going to produce isotopes for nuclear medicine. Nuclear doesn't cure you. They take it out of you and they got to stick it in a deep geological repository like your excrements and that. That don't cure you. That cured you. They put you in a bus with glass windows and take you to every school on the planet. France should pay for study on genetic impacts of a specific nuclear test. France. Now they located $17,000, folks, to study the genetic effects of decades of nuclear detonations on the French Polynesian islands. And France has said until recently that there was no adverse side effects. Nothing. Until 2010, France said its tests were clean and had no effect on the human health whatsoever. Nothing. Follow up on reports dating to lousy 2016 of radiation caused disabilities in the atolls near the blast zones. Confirmed since 2017 the budget allocation of $17,000. How much is the academic going to have to steal from that to make it worth his while, I wonder? They'll spend $1 billion to prove it didn't hurt you, and $17,000 to prove it did, but whoever gets that study is not going to be motivated or able to really do a proper study. $17,000. They spent $44 million to find out if there was a sperm stain on Monica Lewinsky's dress after an affair with Bill Clinton. But they only spent $17,000 to find out if genetic defects in wonderful children is caused by the nuclear industry. In 2018, the former head of child psychiatry reported pervasive development disorders in areas close to the Monroe test site. And the finding caused an uproar in French Polynesia, and Fitch accused him of causing panic, which is the Prime Minister of France, I think at that time, was it? Accused him of causing panic because he suggested that people were injured by radioactive fallout, folks. Because France says that the nuclear tests were clean and had no effect on humans' health. So shut up. There's 1,000 reasons to hate nuclear each day. Lovisa Nuclear Power Plant annual outage 2022 is completed. So when they crack open these reactors to change some fuel, maintenance is usually like 3,500 maintenances they got to do. They'll bring in outside workers because they don't know nothing about nuclear. And when they crack open the reactor, all that radiation escapes. When you put it in the pool, it's still splitting the atoms, so now it's deadly all day, every day. Massive disease factories, and almost all of them surrounded by farms is the frightening part. World's first digital spec CAT scan / capable of high energy nuclear imaging enables full range of clinical capabilities. It scares me. They can do this with high energy light and computer software to do the imaging. So, right, because lights are so cheap and so energy efficient now. Like if I got a broken arm and you got a powerful light, you can shine right through it and see it with your own eyes, but you can also just use computer software to give you that printed image, right? These are disease factors, is what these things are. High energy tracers, yeah. An elementary school contaminated with nuclear waste. That was almost on the back pages of the search engine. And you're talking about page, out of 16 pages, that was page 15, that story. So if you're going through the nuclear cycle, you had to go through 15 pages of nuclear news to get to that story. And that story in a 24-hour cycle should have been on the first 1 or 2 or 3 pages because of when it was posted. It was deliberately moved to the back. Opponents of nuclear waste facility march as one in Port Augusta, South Australia. Bless their hearts for trying, man. So the natives, because they want to build a nuclear repository in Kimba, which is farm country, prime farm country. And they bought a lot of farmland, prime farmland. They want farmers to keep farming it while they're putting the nuclear waste down. The nuclear waste for the Deep Geological Repository in South Australia is from medical applications, from hospitals, and a lot of it is excrement from the victims they injected nuclear waste into. So when they're in $1 million room, hospital room, the room is lead lined. And even their excrement is going into a separate container so it can go into a nuclear waste storage that they don't have, so it's stored on site. But there was a patient was getting chemotherapy radiation, and he got sick of it. He couldn't take it anymore, and he just left the hospital. And they chased him home, and he had, when he got home, the first thing he done was took a leak in his back garden, because that's something he's kind of like isolated a little bit, and that wasn't uncommon for him to take a leak in his back garden. And so when he got home, he took a leak. The hospital came out and dug up the gravel where he leaked to and took it to a nuclear holding site. It can't cure you, see? Something with that attributes can't cure you. The natives that owned the land weren't allowed to vote, weren't allowed to participate, weren't recognized as part of the population. And legislation was created to stop them from participating. And thank goodness they're fighting back. Royal Navy nuclear submarine worker suffers electrical shock. He was okay apparently, but the non-regulatory agency slapped an improvement notice on the yard following the incident and has extended it to the middle of next year. In other words, they done that just because it made it into the media, right? Otherwise, they do nothing. Oh yeah, we got we told them to improve. Well, they almost killed somebody. Shouldn't somebody be held accountable? Oh, we told them they gotta improve, Dana. The day is coming when you won't be able to find a baseball bat anywhere. House of Dragon director explains the Hightower nuclear predicament. I hate it when they use the word nuclear to be descriptive, because it's got nothing to do with nuclear. They're using it to be descriptive. And because nuclear is an absolute disease factory and a misery machine, I disrespect them for doing that. I disrespect him for doing that. So how did our video do last night? At 1 hour, 3 minutes, 21 seconds. Let me see. Maybe I didn't. Yeah, 13 hours later, it's 11 seconds longer. 10 seconds longer. 21 to 31. And then the last video was 4 seconds longer. They make my videos longer after 12 hours. They don't do that to other people's videos. PIF objects, which is Pacific Island Forum, right? Like the Marshall Islands and French Polynesians and the tropical islands. The objective proposal dispose of nuclear waste treated water. They haven't stopped dumping the water. The tanks were built to trick you. You can fill up all the tanks in 6 times in one day if you had the normal volume of water. The amount of water they're claiming they're putting through the reactors each day, multiple reactors, is 120 tons, which is what a garden hose puts out each day in a 24-hour period. Which, like, so you got to split the garden hose 4 ways and spray it on 4 different reactors, is what they're talking about doing. A 9,000 degree Fahrenheit melted reactors, split 4 ways. They had 1,000 tanks in 2013, 1,200 in 2014, 900 in 2017, 1,000 in 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022, still 1,000. The idea of the tanks was to deceive you, manipulate you, and that's exactly what happened, and spectacularly effective on top of that. And so there's no incentive not to be evil if you're not able to be honest. And so they got control of the media. There's no honest journalism. There might be, but I haven't found it in years and years and years of looking. And I'm looking. How nuclear fusion reactors like this one could change the world. You got better chances of alien civilization showing up and playing football with a football team than you do with nuclear fusion showing up and solving your issues. Nuclear fusion and nuclear small reactors are a distraction so you don't come up with solutions. It's on purpose. It's completely deceptive and deceitful and dishonest, and it's on purpose. The best thing the world could do is kill everything in the nuclear industry as quick as they can and start again. And get rid of it, but not reactivate this disgusting, despicable, revolting industry. Bioenergo to expand its biomass fuel sales. Japan is one of them. It aims to focus on Japan, which has projected biomass demand for 23 million tons in 2025, which is triple the current rate. So Japan is definitely planning on pumping up biomass that's going to be imported. Finnish Fortum molds small modular reactors. Why though? Why would you mold small modular reactors? We got a poll tonight. Will small modular nuclear reactors that do not exist lower energy bills anywhere in the next 20 years? And 95% to 37 votes said absolutely, positively, unequivocally not. After their company suffered heavy losses due to Russia's gas cuts. Russia didn't cut gas to Finland. Finland put an embargo against Russia and caused the inflation themselves. But now the media, the last couple of months, this is what they're claiming. Russia's cutting fuel when it was 195 countries put in embargoes against their only source of fuel, which instantly caused catastrophic inflation worldwide. It's a despicable, it's a disgusting betrayal. It's a despicable. The people in your countries who caused that to happen should be prosecuted. Sweden got a new government. Boom. Got a pro-nuclear government. They're going to immediately set to work on nuclear expansion. You know what that means, right? Like I talk about this a lot, how the governments will get infiltrated by the nuclear industry if they're not pro-nuclear. Pro-nuclear government slips in, get key positions. Next time there's a big election, they get into power. Boom, all your resources now are going to be are spent on despicable genocidal, omnicidal disease factories called nuclear power. Their new government going to immediately work on nuclear expansions. And they show you a picture of Sweden's nuclear plants with cows right alongside of it. The farms right alongside of it. When I looked up pictures of it, surrounded by farms. How can anybody ever live in that environment and not know the difference? How brainwashed have you got to be to do something like that? These are absurd disease factories. And you can see the farms all over the place in the top of the picture. Newly installed government of Sweden immediately going to burn all of its resources it can, build more nuclear reactors. Surreal, eh? Chalk River National Laboratories celebrating Nuclear Science Week. Chalk River National Laboratory is the first official nuclear meltdown on the planet, and it's in Canada, right alongside one of the biggest aquifers on the planet, the Great Lakes. All of its nuclear waste runs into the Great Lakes, and after decades, all it done with the nuclear meltdown is poured cement over it, and every time it rains, it washes hugest amounts. They're now currently in the schools, primary schools, showing children fuel bundles. That's so evil, it defies even rationale. It's just defies, like I'm reading this and I'm like, it can't be real. It can't be that actually evil. You can't, is there actually people that is this evil, they will go into school to brainwash the children? Yeah, sure enough, Canada's National Nuclear Laboratory talks up the benefits of nuclear science technology to children that could barely count to 10. It's absurd. The Canadian Nuclear Degenerate Laboratories, Canada's shit-for-brain nuclear science and technology scumbags, is pleased to announce it will be celebrating Nuclear Degenerate Science Week by hosting a number of fun and educational activities and initiatives for the public, being your children. They're going to bring the children to the National Laboratory site, folks, to the nuclear wasteland itself. It's so evil it defies reality. That can't be real. How the hell can that be real? Wait till you get a hang of it. Hang on there. Yeah, I still got a touch of the flu, Richard. Right you are. At schools across the region, folks. It'll be sharing a series of informative online presentations for the public, donating dozens of educational books on nuclear to the local libraries, propaganda machines, and hosting pop-up displays on nuclear energy in public buildings throughout the local communities, the public government buildings. Nuclear industry is going to infiltrate that. Now imagine if I got the opportunity to do all of that. Right? If they got to hear the other side of nuclear, the real side of nuclear. Carbon-free, treat cancer. And this is Joe McBeatty, the piece of shit president and CEO of Chalk River's National Laboratories. As Canada's National Nuclear Degenerate Laboratory, We have a responsibility to help educate the public on the benefit of these disease factories, these murder machines. This is the goal of this. That is the goal of this Nuclear Science Week. America is doing the same thing. Among the schools that Chalk River National Laboratories will visit as part of the Nuclear Science Week, folks. You know, the Boy Scouts used to have an atomic badge. The Boy Scouts. It's an absolute industry of evil. St. Francis, the Mackenzie Community School in Deep River, the Pontiac High School in Shawville, classrooms from St. George High School in Renfrew and the Jean LaJolie High School in Pembroke will be participating in the campus tours at Chalk River Laboratories itself with an ongoing meltdown. The whole community is radioactive. It's a dirty, dirty, dirty part of our planet, that whole area. 1,000 square kilometers is highly radioactive. We'll be participating in campus tours at the disease factories at the degenerate Chalk River National Laboratories. Baseless rumor badge. I should get a baseless rumor badge. Japan will seize on that, you know that, right? Thornburg is back. That story now has been recycling. Probably I've seen it like 100 times. It's the same story, the same author, the same paragraphs, and the same pictures for 90% of the stories. Some changes slightly, but it's the same story. We got a kid who knows nothing about nuclear. She's the perfect Manchurian candidate, and they put her on a pedestal because she's not capable of knowing the difference, and this is why they put her on a pedestal. And she's mobbed by millions of teens that want to do the right thing, and they get lost in all the fuss, right? Fridays for Future founder Greta Thunberg, who was hyped on the climate change rhetoric being fed to her in schools, see? It's really stunning how evil the nuclear industry actually is. There's nothing like it. There's scum, and then there's criminals, but then there's nuclear. They make the common murderers look like people who had a bad choice. EDF to start negotiations to end French nuclear plant strikes. EDF, that organization, which is the French government, is one of the most dysfunctional things you'll ever encounter if you actually look at them like we have over the years. There's really nobody in charge there, and there's a new person in charge all the time, but their job is to get their picture taken. It's the government, and they're arrogant. They're incredibly hubris, unbelievably pompous. Understanding Tomorrow's Nuclear Energy Lecture continues October the 24th with Director General Megwood. You remember that piece of shit from the NRC? I do. So, Purdue University is bringing in a ringer to brainwash the willing. The event will be live streamed, but you got to register to both in person or live stream. You got to register. What does that mean? What do you got to register for? You anal idiots. His legacy is just revolting. Let me see. He was hooked up with Japan. He was hooked up with MIT. with the non-regulatory agencies, the nuclear energy agencies, the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and the director of the U.S. government's civilian nuclear energy program at the Department of Degenerate Energies. Murder, mass murder in overdrive. Megwood's the 21st century nuclear resurgent. Opportunities and challenges will review the facts and considerations led to the surge in interest in nuclear energy around the world, the likes of which have not been seen since the beginning of nuclear energy era more than 60 years ago. Right? And so the propaganda that we've been covering in 2022, since February, was a public relation stunt, because when Russia invaded Chernobyl, there was a horrendous amount of people that had no idea what the frig Chernobyl was. And all of a sudden, nuclear felt the heat. And so they activated thousands of journalists and public relation firms worldwide to come out and spin nuclear into their favor. You got a nuclear power plant threatening to melt down day after day for months, coming multiple times close to catastrophes. And the nuclear industry is claiming that they've never looked better. The industry is actually, the very definition of evil is appropriate way to look at the nuclear industry. The likes which have never been seen since the beginning of the nuclear industry more than 60 years ago. So, and you can see, like, they're talking about fusion, they're talking about small modular reactors, both of which likely are not to exist for 30, 40, 50 years. Both of them, they've been trying to get up and running for 50 plus years. And they got a single design on paper that's got approval, but there's missing an absurd amount of documentation. And that is going to produce 35 times more intermediate level dangerous waste, 30 times more very high level brutally dangerous radioactive waste, and 5 times more fuel rod when you scale it up than the conventional disease factories. But that still don't touch the constant emissions. And then when you take it out of the reactor and put it in the fuel pools, because you're talking about weapons grade mixed oxide fuel, it was down blended. This is so the stuff that comes out of a normal reactor is considered 2 billion times, according to the government, 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. If you put it through a chain reaction again, it's 2 billion times again. So when you put it in the fuel pool and it's still splitting the atoms, these are scary, 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 lethal atoms to everything with replicating cells. I apologize for giving this shit. I know that makes me a bad person. Inside the world's first nuclear waste tomb in Finland, which is on a small island, the rest of it's under the ocean. We'll keep it safely stored for 1 million years. This is, like, they can't quantify these assertions. Once it's left alone and the neutrons breaks down the integrity of the containments, which won't be that long down the road, now you'll have a chain reaction starting up. It'll hit 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. Now, first off, when you dug a tunnel under these bedrocks, that bedrock is no longer stable. They're not just digging one tunnel, they're just digging massive amounts of tunnels. So, like, if you dig one tunnel and you brace it up really good, yeah, it's kind of stable. When you dig all of this, that geological repository is no longer a stable geological repository. So say your house is built on 50 legs, It's up in the air. It's built 50 legs. I come in and chop out 40 of the legs. What do you think is eventually going to happen within the next year or two? It's going to collapse, right? You're like, and a lot of this is under the ocean. Don't fall for the nonsense they give you. We covered this when it was originally announced. Sky News was given rare access to the site. Rare access. Like, you got to get it off the planet because it's still splitting the atoms. But you don't need to put it out under the ocean. You don't need to put it where any water can infiltrate it. There's lots of good places you could put it. Because you're not going to try to come up with a real solution. That's the only solution that's being proposed. After what? Decades and decades and decades of the best and the brightest and the smartest and the most funded, the biggest, most famous institutions and universities worldwide. Let's dig a hole and put it in the ground. Every facet, because once you dig in these so-called stable environments, it's no longer stable. Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, it runs safety systems on. So Rafael Grossi, he said nobody died at Fukushima. Last year at the Constipated Party 26, United Nations corporation that shouldn't exist. And there's subsidies. United Nations, George Bush Sr. called them the New World Order. Eisenhower called them the military-industrial complex. The 5 big strides from Argonne towards nuclear energy, Argonne's national laboratories, I'm assuming. And they're built on one of the biggest aquifers in that part of the country. If not the biggest, actually. Yeah, Argonne's National Laboratory. Develop powerful mini reactors. The #1 goal. Argonne National Laboratory. I got that there somewhere. Hang on. Here's Savannah River, Los Alamos, Idaho National Laboratories, Lawrence, Livermore, Oak Ridge, Whip, Chalk River, Sandina National Laboratories, Nevada National Laboratories, Hanford, Brookhaven. Oh yeah, Argonne National Laboratories outside of Chicago. 1,700 acres. Develop powerful mini reactors. And they're going to be powerful because they're going to use mixed oxide fuel, which is illegal in the United States and Canada because it's so hideously evil. Use AI to lower costs. That answers the question earlier. Would nuclear use AI? Recycle nuclear fuel, which probably should have been the first one, say, because you can't have the small, fabled modular reactors without the... It's not recycling. You're making a disease factory machine. Once you take it out of the reactors, it's going to split atoms that are just unbelievably dangerous, and that gets released into the environment. There's no way to contain it. Nuclear energy produces minimal waste. Like when I hear that, I want to smack somebody really bad. I'm not a violent person either, but I want to punch somebody out every time I hear that word. Model entire nuclear reactor. Again, right, we talk about this where they got to build one, they got to get it to function, they got to get the kinks out of it. It takes probably a decade to find the flaws. They got to re-engineer it. It's another 5 years. Then they got to build a new design, so they got to get another site. They got to get approval. They got to get funding. They got to get, they got to grade the land. They got to get all the infrastructure in place. They got to get 2 power supplies piped into it, dedicated to it. Understand sodium. Yeah, you know what? Like Santa Susana. You don't need to understand it. You already know how stupid it is. Every sodium reactor that they built has melted down on this planet, worldwide. The Santa Susana is equal to 460 3-mile oil and nuclear power plants melting down at the same time. Of 460. And all people talk about is 3 Mile Island. Whew. Made it through the show, did we? It's an hour and 10 minutes tonight. Looks like I got censored super bad tonight. My goodness. Terrible censorship. And I didn't import the video, but I got the boat running. That's some good news for a change. I'm going to change the oil filter. The oil, I already bought the oil today, and I bought a pan. Actually, what I bought was a litter box pan, because they're $3. And then the oil pan is $15. So I don't need the litter box. Plastic is plenty big enough to change oil, right? So, but I'm also going to change the leg oil, gear oil, right? 75 weight, and so I got to get a crush washer for that tomorrow. And that oil, that's expensive oil, by the way. I bought the oil today, the 10W30 for the motor, and I looked at 2 filters, but I didn't know which one was which. I changed the fuel filter. They're $35. I had an extra one, and so I changed that on the weekend also. We got that done. And was out on the water, but still got some. Now it said I was low on oil. We added oil, and that got rid of that warning. But it's still restricting, so it's probably just the oil filter, I would imagine. I'm hoping. The engine runs beautiful now, but it's not. It stays in restrictive mode at 3,000 RPMs, which means it's probably the oil filter, because I have changed it for 2 years and it's sat around all winter. And I'm assuming that's what's going on, right? This happened to me before. But I haven't done the leg oil for about 250 hours. You're supposed to change that every 100 hours. And what else was I wanted to talk about? I can't remember off the top of my head. I usually got it written down so that I know what I'm talking about before I go live, right? I'll do a shout out here. Well, we got a poll. Let's close the poll down. Will small modular nuclear reactors that do not exist lower energy bills anywhere in the next 20 years? And the majority, 95% by a large margin, says no, unfortunately. So stop pretending that it will, right? We'll close that down. We'll do a shout out for everybody. We didn't do it last night never mind. It's been a tough weekend for me. Yes, Seafoam works great. I use Seafoam, but that's not what's going on here. But I should throw some Seafoam. I got some out there. Port Angeles, Dana Nasana, thank you again. Heavy Thinker, Snakes and Doggies. Richard Peaceware. Angel's Place. Colette. Thank you, Colette. Michael Schneider. Michael Schnell. Let me check that. Donated 100 last week. I forgot to mention. He called in, right, last Thursday. We appreciate it. My apologies for not acknowledging it. It got past me for some reason. It's pretty rare. I like acknowledging it so people know I actually got the money, right? Savannah's Fourth. Jeff Poor. Thank you, Jeff. Patrick. Hi, Patrick. Let me see here. We're just going to shoot up a quick shout out to people. Skawilla. Shayla. Kevin Blanche. I would have gave him a call. I should have called him. Let me see who else we got. James Lucet. MK Greta. Indeed. MK Ultra in overdrive. I like that baseless rumor badge. I'm tempted to make one of them and put it up at my site for sale. Baseless rumor badge from Japan. Because Japan has a whole industry to try to pretend that there's just baseless rumors. There was no nuclear meltdown, no nuclear fallout. Danny San. I forget anybody. My apologies. Nancy San. Maritime Slave. Adam the Mushroom. Lots of people showed up tonight. Richard. And everybody else is sitting back. Hi, everybody. Thank you. If you made it this far, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. It probably won't register, but I appreciate you if you try. Provoke. We're almost up through the names. Stephen Young. Hi, Stephen. I'm always surprised when I see Stephen in the comments section because I know he's not very healthy. He's been trying to recover for about 1.5 years and he's got a long way to go. So it's a lot of effort for him to get in there. I know he's watching. He used to write senators all the time, Stephen Young did, right? And he used to CC me the letter whenever he got a reply. It was always a chain letter that he sent when nuclear is wonderful. Too cheap to meter. And it was just weird, man. He had legitimate concerns and he chain mailed him back. John Curtis. We're almost up there. I guess that's it for the top part. Let's come down and see if I missed anybody since the poll. Yeah, I seen Shayla and Stephen Young below the poll there. Thank you. I'm just double checking. We're almost through. Kevin Blanche. Hi, Kevin. Joe Millo. If you're not familiar with Kevin, folks, check him out on YouTube. He's been an activist, per se, since he was 3 or 4 years old or something. He's old enough to hold a sign. He's been doing it. He's never stopped. Yeah, it looks like I got everybody. I put on a happy face for everybody tonight. Just because I know last night I was pretty depressed. We still got a ways to go, but we'll get there. God bless everybody. Hugs for everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow night, Tuesday night. Just hump day around here because we start our shows on Sunday. And you can be sure the nuclear industry won't let us down. There'll be lots of scumbags to cover tomorrow night. The nuclear industry is only good at one thing. It's being scumbags. They're extremely freaking good at it, unfortunately, for the species and humanity and the future of humanity. It was a great poll tonight. We appreciate it. And 37 likes, which is extraordinary on this site. It took me a whole decade to get up to these numbers. We almost had 6 people on the show at the beginning. That's like a record for this site. The other site they took down last year when I was looking for spiders regularly had 300 views by now and at least 100 thumbs up. Good night, everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Have a great night. Great day tomorrow. Don't forget to tell your loved ones you love them. You never know when you won't get that chance. Take care, folks.